Hey folks, Darren with Sorta Ridiculous. We are in After Hours. That's right. So we are continuing our interview with Matt Kemple of Laughing Tap, where people attempt to be funny, and most of them are. Actually, a lot of them are. You see, on the weekends, they're all funny. On Wednesdays, we aight. You have a whole variety of, different levels of folks on there. But we were in the middle of some of the cool comedians that Matt has got to work with at the Laughing Tap.
Well, at the Laughing Tap specifically.
Or generally speaking.
Generally speaking. Well, I was mentioning Colin Quinn.
Yeah.
And he was amazing because we had him as a headliner in the Comedy Fest, and it was at Turner Hall. And he's just huge and full of life. He's exactly the way that he is in his movies and on Saturday Night Live. He's just got this big, loving personality. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool just to kind of meet somebody that I've seen on television for 20 years. That was really neat. Man, at the Tap, it is crazy because every time I think I'm like, oh, that was my favorite, then we work with somebody else that I'm like, man, that was my favorite. And I feel like we've really done well with the level of talent that we're able to bring in.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, again, just like other SNL alum, that's really exciting. Like, we had Casey Shornama just a couple weeks ago, mm-hmm. and she's one of the writers for the news segment on SNL,
The Weekend Update.
Mm-hmm. She's one of 4 people that writes that every week, and she's amazing to work with. And we had worked with her before, and her agent said that she had requested to work with us again. And so when that kind of thing happens, that's really exciting. And that's happened to us a couple of times now with various acts. They're just like, oh yeah, hey, we had such a great time. We want to make sure that you're the venue that we come to. So
that's solid. Yeah. That's really cool. As far as like Saturday Night Live folks, didn't you guys have what's her name? Her last name starts with a V.
Oh, Villas in New York?
Yeah.
No, we have not.
You guys didn't have? Wait.
No, the Improv had her, but
that's okay.
She's definitely somebody I'd love to work with. She's so funny.
She is,
and I know she does a bunch of impressions and stuff in her stand-up. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But we've worked with SNL specifically. We have Michael Longfellow coming up, who I assume when this is like online, that'll probably already have happened.
And when is it happening?
It's not this weekend, but the next week.
It'll be out by then.
Yeah. And then KC, she's amazing as a writer. Luke Null, he's going to be coming back this year. We worked with him a couple years ago. He was on 1 year of SNL, but he plays guitar and does a bunch of like really funny songs. And there's like this really great SNL clip of him and the lead singer from the White Stripes, doing this scene together at a wedding or whatever. Is really funny. But anyway, yeah, it's fun to look and say like, oh, we have like 3 SNL people this year alone, and
that's dope.
Yeah, and just like other shows like Conan and Late Night and all those shows, like it's exciting to see all these amazing comics come through and want to work with us. So.
Okay, so there's a particular comedian that I would love to see at the Laughing Tap. Actually, there's a few, but this last year, I found Josh Johnson.
Okay,
Joshua Johnson, really funny dude. His perspectives on things, it's reminiscent. I say it's reminiscent of like Dave Chappelle, mm-hmm. as well as Donald Glover.
Yeah,
for that bit that he had. I can go on a whole rant about Donald Glover.
I miss his stand-up. I love his music career. Yeah, I'm really glad that he's like so creative that he can just go in these different outlets and be an actor and a music producer and writer and singer and a comedian. It's incredible.
And seamlessly.
Yeah. And be really good at all of those things. Right. It kind of makes you sick.
It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle, but no. I aspire to be a Renaissance man.
Yeah, there you go.
But so one of my favorite things, which I also would love to have some tips on. So one of my favorite things about producing, considering that I went to school for graphic design, is the marketing.
Yeah.
I love the marketing. What are your thoughts on like the marketing for shows?
It's one of the most important parts of
Mm.
comedy. Honestly, I think 80% of what we do as a comedy company is have to put our name out there. You know, there's a lot that goes into putting the shows on, but you know, most of our budget is being spent when it's not on talent, it's going towards our marketing budget, you know, trying to get the word out and having that branding. That's something that you do really well, you know, with your ridiculous productions. I love, you know, that 8-bit design that you have. I'm just looking at the buttons on your hat right now.
Thank you.
And he's got the T-shirt on. But yeah, I love that logo. It looks really cool and it's identifiable and good color choice with the yellow and black. Gotta say,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Um,
I felt like I was home when the first time I walked into
Yeah.
the Laughing Tap.
yeah, and no, it's extremely important, and you know you have a very short amount of time to get somebody's attention and to tell them if this is something that they're going to be interested in or not. And every day that goes by, that gets more and more difficult because everybody's bombarded with so many advertisements. I mean, you can't walk down the street without seeing 30 different advertisements.
Oh my God,
And
yes.
so yeah, you know that marketing is so important to get the message out and just tell people, hey, this thing is happening and you're going to want to see it.
Right. Oh, so I don't. What is it like? Milwaukee comedy shows or Milwaukee Comedy Network or something like that.
The Facebook
that you
group?
Yeah. There's a website.
MilwaukeeComedy.com.
Okay,
Yeah.
MilwaukeeComedy.com. So, you're affiliated with?
Yeah,
that
so
as well?
Milwaukee Comedy is our like umbrella
Mhm.
company, and then that is really how everything else started. So that is the umbrella that like started the Milwaukee Comedy Festival 19 years ago, and then so we do a show at like Lakefront Brewery and Great Lakes Distillery and Dandy and a couple other places. So those are all under the Milwaukee Comedy name, and the festival is, and then Laughing Tap is kind of like the subcategory. So it's, you know, yeah, so Milwaukee Comedy started originally just as a blog to tell people where comedy shows were because there was no, I mean, the internet was, I mean, this was 20 years ago. So they're just, you know, Facebook was barely a thing then, if it even existed on a public level then.
Yeah, I think it might have still been just college
Yeah.
at that point.
I remember a couple friends of mine were still in college and they were able to get an account, and I was like, well, I got a MySpace. Like,
Yeah, it's not as cool as Facebook. Wait till you get to college, you bum.
so yeah, the website was really just a means of telling people where comedy was, and then it became a production company by, you know, we were trying to produce a show or two a year to try to support the comedy festival just to be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then it got to be 4 shows a year, and then it was once a month, and then twice a month, and now we do 15 to 20 shows a month.
Which is awesome.
It's insane. Don't
yeah,
do
that
it.
is insane. So that
It's
means you got to have like so
hundreds of
many
shows
like
a year.
producers and hosts, like
Yeah.
like a freaking like a roster. I was gonna say a stable, but that's inhumane. A roster.
We just keep everybody in that barn out back.
It's like, yeah, here have some jokes. All right. So, having been on the scene for so long, what are the ingredients for a successful comedy festival?
Oh boy.
Or just running a festival, generally speaking? What are the basic ingredients that you?
You know, I don't know how much of that 19 years was successful. I mean, maybe 4 of them have been. But
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Just the ingredients. What makes a festival?
You know, giving people a reason to come out is number one. It used to be in August, the first week of August, and we slowly moved it over to October. And that was tough just because you're competing with sunlight. You're competing with nice weather and sports and Summerfest and everything else that's happening. It was really like a German fest we were usually like up against and things like that. But it's so easy to get lost in the sea of things like that. It's still difficult, but the key is, you know, kind of what I was saying earlier, you have to give people a reason to want to to check it out.
Right.
Whether that's because it's super unique. When was in its early phases, it was all local people and kind of regional from Chicago and Minneapolis and things like that. So that's not necessarily going to attract the average person who's like, well, I don't know who any of these people are. Why would I want to go? So it's got to make it unique for some way. And then, so for us, it took many years to kind of build up. We didn't have all this sponsorship. We didn't just start a festival with millions of dollars in our pocket, hoping to make millions more. We just had a love for comedy and a goal to just try to create. And so we didn't try to be great at it. It just was something that over time we just really, really cared about it and worked with other people that really cared about it. And that's really what ended up making it great. I don't know if that's a cop-out answer, but that's my answer.
No, it isn't. But so obviously I'm on the scene to a degree, and I've talked to comedians about what they like about comedy festivals, and to them it's the networking. So I was like, I didn't even think about it, still being fresh, but I guess that's a way to get known, or some sort of recognition or cosign for being in other cities.
Yeah, actually, and it's incredible because we didn't know we were doing it at the time, but with the fest, we were creating a network of comics, and we were meeting people from other states and working with them and starting to spread the word that, like, oh, hey, comedy's happening in Milwaukee, because there really was very little of a scene. There was one show a month if you were lucky. That was kind of like an independent show. We used to talk to each other and be like, hey, my show's going to be on Friday, so you can do yours on Saturday. It was so difficult to put a show on, and if there were two shows going on at once, then they would probably both fail. I mean, it was a very struggling scene. It's so strong now, it's really exciting. I had a point, but I don't remember what it was because I just kept babbling.
Well, that's right. So the scene, as far as the scene is concerned, I love how friendly the Milwaukee scene is. It was very welcoming. I hear of these bigger cities where it's like dog eat dog. Everything. It's like just hardcore competition. So I guess we're all just like Midwest nice with dark senses of humor.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, I remember meeting comics and being so shocked at the stories that they would tell me, and that was literally kind of my philosophy, was to treat people the way that they should be treated. And that's really kind of our basic philosophy at the Laughing Tap, is to just treat people with respect. And it is absolutely incredible how many big name comics who perform all over the country, if not the world, are like, wow, you guys are nice. And we're like, this is just basic. Like, that should be putting a show on 101, is just saying hi to people. Hey, how you doing? How was your flight in? Are you doing all right? There's been so many horror stories I've heard over the years of people just being screamed at, and they're like, I'm your headliner.
Right.
There was a group, it was a sketch group, I think, for the Comedy Fest that had come in, and they were so worried about how much time they were supposed to do on stage. And I was like, are you doing 30 minutes? And they're like, and when does the time start? When does the time end? This and that. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what's going on here? And they said, well, they had literally just come from a show where the host went up and did a bunch of material in between acts, and he was up there talking for a bunch of time, and then went up, and they were supposed to do 30 minutes, and they were 15, 20 minutes into the set, and the stage manager's like, you guys got to get off the stage. What are you still doing on the stage? And you're like, we're only this much time in. And they're like, no, your time started when the host got up there. And it's like little things like that is just like that. One, that's just rude.
That is.
Don't take somebody else's time away from them because of somebody else's mistake. It's not that group's fault. And two, to just like have the audacity of like, oh no, we're going to start the clock like whenever we want, and we're not going to communicate with you in a proper way. We're not, so I mean, that's just a tiny example, but I've heard a million different stories of people just being treated like crap on the road. And you don't have to do much history seeking. You don't have to talk to many people to find out that this is a very shady industry, and it started as a very shady industry, and there were a lot of people that would just put money in their pockets, and they would walk all over the talent. And in the theater world, there was unions that came along, and there was all of these changes that happened over centuries that it took to get the kind of respect that performers needed. And comics don't really have that. Luckily now we have the internet, and we can say, hey, I worked in, Bobsville, and Bob sucks,
So
and
in word of mouth,
yeah.
like moves like so freaking
Well,
fast.
and that has been our true benefit over the years, is our reputation has preceded us. We have had people say, "Oh my gosh, I just love coming to your club. You guys are so nice. The shows are run well. It's professional." It's like, to us, those are the easy things.
Right.
That's the stuff that shouldn't be difficult. Yeah, I mean, that to me, that's what it comes down to. It's like, by treating people in a professional manner and just wanting them to be there, it goes so far. Like, who knew?
Yeah, I know. No, I've run into that same thing. Apparently, I have like sort of a reputation now. People like sort of ridiculous shows on both ends, which I've been very fortunate to work with.
Yeah.
Some of the comics that I've worked
And you got
with,
unique venues. You're in cool spots. You're not just trying to put shows on in the same places that other people do, because that can be difficult to create an identity.
And then some.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes.
Yeah.
So luckily, all the venues I've been at, it's all warm market for me.
Yeah. That's exciting and very cool.
Yeah. All right. So before we get out of here, as far as like whether it's running shows or anything, you being as awesome as you are, what are some tips, maybe 2 or 3 tips that you can put out there for people that are looking to get into stand up or producing shows?
Sure. I think number one, if you have a desire to be creative and you want to explore that creativity, go for it. You're going to get a ton of people that tell you that you're no good. You're going to get a ton of people that think they're better than you, or going to tell you to do it this way or that way. And that's fine. That's going to be true for, the way you mow your lawn, all the way to running a business. Everybody's got their opinion on it. What's important is to do it the way you think is going to get you the results that you want, So that's my first bit of advice, is to go for it. If there is, and for me, I didn't realize I was really doing that. I had this desire. Nobody else was doing it. There's a couple other people. I was like, do you want to just hang out and have fun and do these fun little weird things? We're like, cool. And there was no obligation. It was just trying to have fun. And then it turned into all this, and over time it became what this monster it is now.
An awesome monster.
Yeah. 2, I'd say challenge yourself. You have the gumption to want to get up and go and try something. And when it becomes easy, well, then take a step back and look and figure out, why is it really easy? One, because I've seen things fall apart because things fall through the cracks. You're like, oh, well, we've done this a million times. We can just do it the same way we've always done it. And then something comes up,
Right. And you're not prepared.
Yeah, like when just any sort of live entertainment example, or even just life. You walk down the street thinking you're gonna be one thing and something happens. Who knows? Life is crazy. And comedy is the same way. You have to be willing to take risks and go for it, and challenge yourself in a way that, hey, if you feel like, oh, everybody has the same jokes in town, write new jokes. Oh, my jokes sound like that guy's jokes, write new jokes.
Right.
I've seen people get upset. Hey, you had a joke about casseroles. I tell the casserole jokes around here. That's my favorite. That is a verbatim quote from a guy that I don't even know his name because he doesn't exist anymore.
Oh my god.
That was like 15 years ago. I heard a guy say that at the comedy cafe. He went up to a friend of mine. We were hanging out having a drink, and he's like, "Hey man, I tell the casserole jokes around here." And he's like, "Okay, dude, whatever." And he walks away, and he's like, "Funny thing is, I didn't tell the casserole joke, that other guy did, and I heard him say it before that guy." And it was like, yeah, like what?
Yeah.
Casserole jokes, man. Just
I haven't heard the name Comedy Cafe in so long.
Yeah, that's how
Good
long ago
God.
that was.
Yeah.
And then, third thing, I don't know. What's some advice that you personally want, or somebody that might want, or what's a challenge that you think you might be up against that you're not sure about? I'll let you help me tell you what answer.
All right. Well, as a producer, well, you answered a lot. I love the thought of like running of like putting together a festival. But I guess with where I'm at, I've been producing shows for a year. So like any other tips or tricks that you have about uh, it in the scene of comedy, in the realm of comedy, that would help anyone. For me in particular, um, talent is cool for me. I'm good at talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
But with this is me and my sixth show. What is and they've been fairly successful. What is the next step after having run a handful of successful shows? What's the next step?
What I would recommend, and not just to you personally, 6 shows, but make sure you learn to walk before you run. Because I understand the excitement and the joy that it brings you. And it's like a drug, putting comedy on and the energy behind it, it feels, it makes sense why people chase that dream. Even when it's not going well, it still feels good sometimes. It's like a drug.
Right.
But you have to make sure, when I was back in those early Bucket Works days and I was helping people start theater companies, the number one thing I saw happen was the term I came up for it was building the upside down pyramid, because people would want to aim for the sky, which you should do. As I said, you should follow your dreams. You should go for it. If you have an idea, you got to go for it. But in those days, it was like the example was the Milwaukee Repertory Theater. They've been around for decades and decades. I think at the time it was 40 years. So my assumption is they're probably 50, 60. I can't remember how old they are, 60 years old, more. And people were wanting to create a theater company that was the Milwaukee Repertory Theater in year one. And that is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, that's absurd. Even.
That's the upside down pyramid model, is that you're trying to create something that has no base. It has no structure, and so it will metaphorically collapse on itself.
Yeah.
So I saw dozens of people do this to themselves. I saw lots and lots of people with lots of creativity have lots of great ideas, and they would sometimes slowly, sometimes very quickly build themselves an upside down pyramid where they have these huge ideas, huge goals, huge aspirations, but they didn't take the time to build it up.
Yeah.
They made it big, and then there was no structure, and it came crashing down. And it's all like metaphors that I'm talking in.
No, of course. But you had to set a good foundation to like get to your.
It can physically happen too. I've seen people put money into building out a space to make it into a venue. So then now you're not just creating content. Now you have to fill that venue to pay the bills. So the content has to, it doesn't matter if you like it now. It only matters if the public likes it now. And so you can very quickly get into a place where, when money is involved, when friendships are involved, all of that can come crashing down if, okay, I thought we were in this together. We need to pay these bills. We got it. And it's like, nope, see you later. I mean, I've had people I thought were business partners up and leave. I've had people that were like, the UC was supposed to be a conglomerate of several different arts groups. And within the first year, they all just kind of went their own way and did their thing. And the lease was in my name. So I was responsible for that place. And that's the only reason that it really turned into what it did was because I had to, because I was drowning in finance speak. That we had a flood down there, but I was drowning financially, and I had put what little savings I had, and I was just kind of coming out of this starving actor world where I was there was no money, but then all of a sudden you have bills to pay and obligations, and not even just like, hey, I'll catch you on the flip side, like, I'm good for it. It's like, no, the government needs money for permits. You have to pay for these permits. You have to get this kind of licensing. You have to so I felt lucky at the time when all of that was happening. That guy knows.
Right.
When all of that was happening, I had the history of watching dozens of small theater companies fail because they didn't go about it the right way. They didn't take the right steps.
Right.
And so I had to take a minute and breathe and be like, okay, how do I swim? You know, how do I speak in a lot of metaphors? How do I get through all of this when it feels like I don't have anything and it's all falling apart?
Right.
So I could have picked up and walked away and had nothing, but what I decided to do instead, I was like, okay, I guess we're going to try to do as much comedy as we can. And it was because that was something I enjoyed. It was something I was starting to get good at. And again, I had been producing comedy for several years in other venues, and it was one of those like, okay, I have my own venue. I'm going to do it this way. Those other partners left. I don't have to do it by
You don't
their
have to cater
rules.
anybody. Yeah.
And that's really what turned things around. So that would be my biggest cautionary tale, is you want to make sure that you have a solid base. You want to make sure that you really understand, you know, what it takes to not just put one show on, but 100 shows, 1,000 shows. You know, what's the difference between that first show and that 6th show for you? Well, then now think of 60 shows. What's the difference going to feel like, you know, 60 shows later from where you are now? How long will that take you? For some people, it will take 60 years. For some people, it would take 60 days. You know, I wouldn't, again, don't do that. You're going to burn yourself out.
No,
take
I
61
feel you.
days, you know.
Yes. Well, I feel like I speak for anyone and everyone who has participated or performed or has seen a show at the Underground Collective. Greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Like very, very much so. I know Billy Ray isn't here, but he would be saying the same thing here. And you know, keep on keeping on. I like seriously, you're an inspiration to see, like having started being a producer of things. So it's nice to see things the cycle of things going around. And anytime that I run into you, it's always a good time.
Well, and I love it too. You always got a smile on your face. You always seem to be working on some cool, fun project. I mean, and this included, you know, this.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. The shows that you're doing are very exciting, and the fact that I heard about it means your marketing is working.
Yo, you hear that? Matt Kemple heard about Sorta ridiculous shows. You know, with that being said, thank you so much for being on here, Matt. It's been great. Those conversations have been a lot of fun, and that would be another After Hours of Sorta Ridiculous.com. All right, catch you guys next time. This is Sorta Ridiculous.
That was fun. I told you I talked a lot.